You know why? Because bad things happen in Philadelphia. Bad things.
Fly ball, center field. Victorino going way back. And he won't play. It's off his glove.
It's off to Leonard. Defended by Simmons. Is this the dagger?
Oh, dream team.
It's off with a 2-minute warning. Little surprise. Falls back, throws. Intercepted. Went right through Jeffrey's hands.
This is our new norm. This is our new norm.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into another edition of Bad Things Happen in Philadelphia, everyone's favorite podcast of Philly fans just complaining about everything that's going wrong. And as usual, there's a lot to talk about. Actually, there might be some going right, depending on how people think, because we all saw what happened last week with the Eagles. And Jalen Hurts is now the starter for the Saints game. So how does everyone feel? Let's rewind back to last weekend and just give us initial thoughts on that game as a whole. Chris, you start.
I mean, Hurts definitely provided a spark off the bench. I mean, now whether that's going to be able to hold over into next week against the Saints, I don't think so. What I really liked about Hurts was he was able to move and throw on the run outside of the pocket. In fact, he looked better outside of the pocket than inside of the pocket. And that kind of reminded me a little bit of what Carson used to do before the injury. And that's what made Carson so dynamic. Now, overall, I think Carson, before the injury, was a better quarterback because he could also stand in the pocket and throw. And I don't think Jalen can do that. But I do think he brings a little bit more of a spark that this team hasn't had all year, and a dual threat quarterback, which for some reason Carson has not been.
Well, yeah, I agree with that, Chris. And, while Jalen is not Carson Wentz, obviously, we'll see if he ever reaches Carson's potential. But it just got to a point where it needed to happen. The switch needed to happen. It probably honestly should have happened sooner than it did. But I'm glad that it did because, Wentz, as much as I want to root for him and want to root for him to be this franchise's quarterback, we're certainly paying him like it. It just got to a point where we couldn't deal with this anymore. And the Eagles couldn't deal with this anymore. And, and now with the season pretty much being all but lost, we're a long shot for the NFC East title, which would be our only route to getting in the playoffs. It got to a point where Hurts needed to start. Because, now we get the chance to see what Hurts has. And if he is a fix over Wentz, I don't think he is. Wentz isn't the main problem with this team. That's a laundry list of things that we'll probably get to at some point in this podcast. But now this is an audition. It's an audition for Hurts, and it's an audition too, I believe, for Doug Peterson, because it's going to be, how does Doug Peterson coach Jalen Hurts? How does he coach the offense with Hurts in there? And that could be a factor in whether they bring Peterson back at all next season.
Yeah, I definitely think it was the right move. I've made it known on this podcast that I'm not the biggest fan of Jalen Hurts, but Carson, it was time. It does kind of suck how they're basically taking a rookie quarterback who's very raw and just kind of throwing him to the wolves here by putting him against this really good Saints defense. But it definitely was the right move. Carson needs to. I don't know if we trade Carson this offseason. I don't know if we hold on to him, but either or, whatever happens, it was definitely the right move to get him out of there. That a quarterback that's taken a beating like him this past season because of, a really bad offensive line play. It was just time to maybe kind of hit the reset button a little bit and just see what you got in Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, well, here's the thing about Carson Wentz's contract situation in terms of trading him, because if the Eagles cut him outright, they have $57 million they owe him, and that's dead cap. If they trade him, it's $60 million they owe him, and it's dead cap. So this contract is pretty much immovable. So if they are to trade him, it's going to set this franchise back further back than they already are, because they're going to be owed so much money to Carson Wentz to be tied into that no matter what. So that's why I think, this Jalen Hurts pick back in April is even more confusing now because, you have this quarterback that people are going to start calling for if Wentz plays poorly, which he did. And now if Hurts plays well, what happens? Do we say Hurts is our future and we're going to pay Carson Wentz $128 million to be a backup?
Mhm.
Because if we trade him, that's just dead cap. And then Hurts is going to be stuck in the same situation that Wentz is in now, where he's got nothing around him. He's going to be out there by himself.
You're absolutely right, Matt. That's my biggest quandary with this thing right now. You can't get rid of him because you're paying him way too much money. So that he's more than likely going to be on the roster again next year because not a whole lot of teams are going to be willing to take that contract. And if Jalen Hurts does ball out, like you said, what do we do then? Do we trade Jalen Hurts? Do we just hold on to him, have him be a backup? Do we just stick with Carson Wentz next season? I don't know. It's a very, very, very confusing situation that we have right now in our quarterback room. And it's definitely something that could have been avoided if we simply don't draft Jalen Hurts in the second round this past year and maybe draft someone like Jeremy Chin.
Completely agree. As I think we can all agree, nobody liked the pick. And I'm with you guys. I think putting Jalen Hurts in was the right move. And we saw it did bring a spark. But as Matt said, I completely agree that Carson Wentz is not the problem with this team. He was definitely not a problem, but he was just clearly not the problem. And I think that it was more of a coaching issue for sure, and also the offensive line. So with that contract we have, trying to get rid of Wentz is such a stupid decision. And honestly, like Matt said, probably not even possible because you're just going to end up paying him anyways. What's the point? And I don't think Jalen Hurts, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and hopefully he can prove me wrong. I don't think he's the future or anything. Yes, he brought a spark. He looked good, but we'll have to see how he plays in a whole game. And I think it was good to change something up for now. But I'm not all in on the Jalen Hurts is better done with Wentz thing.
No, absolutely not. I don't think Jalen Hurts will be this team's future. I hope I'm wrong. I wish Jalen Hurts the best. I want him to play well. But just looking at it from a fan's perspective, I never really understood how fans can get so high on him. I understand he played great in college, but you also have to take in consideration that he played for two of the best programs in the country. He had two great coaches, and he always had a great team around him for both teams that he played for. And even when he was at Alabama, he had that great team around him. He had a bunch of first rounders around him. He had a great receiving core, and he still got benched. So when people say Jalen Hurts won the national championship, I say no, he didn't, because he got benched in the national championship. Tua won the national championship. So it's just, I never understood why fans were so high on him coming into the draft. And that's why that pick back in April really, really annoyed me, because I just didn't think he was going to be good in the NFL. And I certainly didn't want him on the Eagles. But once again, I hope I'm wrong. I really hope he does well, but that's just coming from my point of view.
I think something else to think about is that this year's, if they really wanted a quarterback, this year's draft class for quarterbacks is a lot deeper than last year's was. The problem is they really can't take a quarterback this year. Because of Wentz's contract, they're not going to be able to get rid of that. I was just looking at the way that's structured. I don't know that they're definitely going to have to give him a chance to play next year. And in my opinion, with how much he's getting paid, you get rid of Doug, you get rid of everybody before you can get rid of Wentz, just because of the way the money is. They're like $70 million over the cap next year, and cutting Wentz or trading him isn't going to do anything for that. And you're not going to get I don't think you're going to get a lot of good value in return, just because his value is at an all-time low right now. So it makes no sense to move on from him. I think at this point, if Hurts looks good, maybe ride with him the rest of the season, and let's see what happens in training camp next year. But Wentz will be on this team in 2021. That's a lock.
Yeah, there's just no way they're going to be able to move him. And like you said, Chris, they're going to have to give him a chance to start next year, regardless of how Hurts does this year, because they're tied into him. And, that's the other thing, too, is the Eagles have been tied into him. They made that commitment, that financial commitment with him with that contract. And when Doug Peterson was hired here, he said, and when they drafted Carson Wentz, he said, love it or hate it, I am married to Carson Wentz. We are married in this. This is a partnership for us. You know, his success is going to be my success, and my success is going to have to be tied into his success. And this year, all Doug Peterson has done, and all Howie Roseman has done, and all this Eagles team has done, Carson Wentz, is fail him. And, you know, as bad as Carson Wentz has been this year, everybody in this organization has failed him too. You know, this offensive line has been garbage from week one. You know, the help in terms of getting the ball into your running back's hands has not been helpful. And even this week, Doug Peterson said, you know, with Jalen Hurts being in there, we're going to try to run the ball more. You know, it's going to be more dynamic run game. Where has that been with Carson? You know, it's the same issue, because I have been screaming to the heavens, run the ball. You have Miles Sanders, who's proven to be one of the better running backs in the league in terms of getting north and south, and you don't give him the football. And you know, for you to come out and say, oh, we're going to make this offense more dynamic in terms of running the ball with Jalen Hurts, you could have done that with Carson Wentz too. He can run the ball just as well.
A clearly struggling quarterback, you don't let him run the ball. But now that you're dealing with a new one, you're going to change it up now. Good call, Doug. Change it up now when it's, you know, end of the season. Where was this before? And I say every week, and I know we all do, run the ball, put Miles Sanders in, because I'm someone that you put the ball in the hands of your best player. And a lot of the time it's been Miles. So I don't know why you don't waste it. And then, you know, and then you see Jalen Reagor finally getting to return a punt. See how that works out for you when he did it in college. Like, it's been there all along, Doug. Like, what are you looking at? What are you doing?
And the other thing with that too, with getting the ball in your playmaker's hands, you know, Jalen Reagor, like you said, returning punts, but that's just half of it. You know, he was brought in as a deep threat specialist, as get the ball in his hands and watch the dude work in space. And the Eagles have not done that for whatever reason. They sent him on a deep route in week one. He caught a 50-yard bomb. That was the last time he did it. And then in this week, when Jalen Hurts is in there for his third play, they send Reagor deep and he throws it to him and he connects with him. I'm like, where has that been with Carson this entire time? There's a 10-week stretch where you didn't throw to Reagor deep once. I understand he was hurt. I understand he was out for a while. But you're not, if you're going to come out here and say you're going to do all this with Hurts and simplify the offense with Hurts, make it simple for Carson too.
That's an argument that goes back to the Nick Foles days as well. Like, a lot of people said that, or it was said back when Nick Foles was the backup, that Doug did simplify the playbook for Nick Foles. And after the offseason with after the Super Bowl, and fans were, you know, debating what they wanted to do with Nick Foles, people were saying that we should roll Nick Foles because the team plays better. But then I believe Doug did say that, or someone in the organization said that the playbook for Nick Foles was much simpler than Carson's. So why didn't Carson just have that simple playbook just like Nick Foles did? Like, why are you overcomplicating things for this quarterback, this young developing quarterback? I just don't understand the way this organization thinks. And I definitely think that, like, this, I'm definitely on the train now that the Eagles have failed Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz has not failed the Eagles.
You know, and there's something else to add in that obviously they've failed surrounding him with weapons besides, I guess, Miles Sanders. But I mean, like, why is Alshon Jeffrey still on this team? Like, why is he taking snaps over Travis Fulgham? I still look. I don't know if Fulgham's going to be able to get back to that, you know, 4-week stretch that he had, but he's still more entertaining to watch than Alshon Jeffrey. Alshon Jeffrey, I said this during the game, the most relevant he's been in the last 2 years was that offensive pass interference he had during that game. Like, literally the only way that guy gets open anymore is by pushing off. He's irrelevant. He's horrible. And everybody should be getting snaps over him.
And the only reason he's still getting snaps is because of the same thing. It's the money thing, because the Eagles are paying him so much, and Howie Roseman is trying to look like, you know, he's trying to justify that deal by putting him out there. And it's not, you know, we could cut him, but it would cost us $26 million in dead cap. And the Eagles could try to trade him, but his value is so low that not only does no team want him, no team is willing to pay him that contract. And what are you going to get for him? Like, what's he worth? A 7th-round pick? Maybe. Yeah.
This is something we brought up in the podcast in the past. I believe we brought it up in the past. Holding on to, like, the pieces of the championship team for too long.
Yeah.
Like now they're just sitting around. They're like a stale piece of bread. No one wants it anymore. You know, you should have got rid of it while it's hot.
I think something that we need to get rid of as soon as possible, which actually may still have some value, is Zach Ertz. I so done with him. Get him off my team, and I think somebody will still take him, and it will be somewhat of value to us. But he is not a value to us, and I'm just done. Like similar to I said, Alshon Jeffrey, like he did one relevant thing as offensive pass interference. Like Zach Ertz made like one play this week, and I was like, oh, Zach, like you're still here, like hi.
Yeah.
And then of course that was like one thing, and I was like, just get rid of him ASAP.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, go ahead, Charles.
I just want to. I'll be quick. I absolutely agree. We have a good young tight end in Dallas Goedert. Get rid of Ertz. Get something for him while we still can.
Even Richard Rodgers has done better than Ertz.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is, I mean, you've got two competent tight ends. You're $70 million over the cap. I mean, that's probably the best way to save money. I mean, is getting rid of Ertz. And I mean, he's clearly in decline. Like if you look at his stats over the last couple of years, he's clearly in decline. So hopefully I doubt it, but hopefully they've learned something and will finally cut from their losses while they're ahead here.
Yeah, but it's the same situation as Alshon Jeffrey. It's because they've held on to him for so long that it's obvious they don't want him anymore, and no one's going to want to take him because his contract is inflated. He's a steady decline, and what are you going to get for him? Because everybody knows you want to get rid of him. He's in a steady decline. You're not going to get anything valuable for him. It's the same situation as Alshon Jeffrey. It's Groundhog's Day, and it's really unfortunate because Zach was such a good player here for the Eagles for a while. And, you know, he wants that big contract. And as much as his previous play could have earned it, his age and the way he's playing right now does not justify that contract anymore. And as much as I would want him to be one of those Eagles for life, it's just time to move on. The man can't run.
I do think he's probably the one piece of the Super Bowl team that would definitely at least fetch the most out of what we have.
Which isn't saying a lot.
Yeah, it's really not.
Mm-hmm. And then so we're talking about players we don't want on the team, and so how do we feel about people in the office and the coaches? Who do you see there next year, or who do you want to see there?
Well, here's the thing, Kelly. Howie Roseman should be let go from his general manager position. That's clear and obvious to everybody. But my problem is he's not going to be let go. Jeffrey Lurie loves Howie Roseman so much. I don't know why. Maybe it's like a Jewish connection or something. I don't know. But he's not going to be let go. He's going to still remain a part of the organization. He's going to be relieved from his GM role, just like he was when Chip Kelly was here. He stepped down from GM, but they keep him in the background. He's still going to be here. So what problem does that fix? Because you still see his face in the hallway every day. You know, he might not be making the same decisions, but it's not going to make anything better because he's still here. And I think he's most likely to let go, but Jeffrey Lurie does not like Doug Peterson right now. He's really fed up. And, you know, we saw it with the fact that he didn't go to the Browns game. And even in the Monday night game against Seattle, you saw him in the stands in his box. He looked pissed. And there's rumors swirling that he wants Doug gone. And as bad as Doug Peterson has been this year, I'm not totally ready to give up on him. As much as my heart says we should, my brain tells me maybe not, just because, you know, as much as Howie Roseman and the front office has failed Carson Wentz this year, they failed Doug Peterson as well.
I agree. I'm not entirely ready to give up on Doug yet. I say give him one more year, and obviously if he does this poorly next year, obviously get rid of him. But it's just like I hate bringing up the whole Super Bowl thing, but I'm just not ready to do it yet because he is a Super Bowl winning coach, and that's a really hard thing to do. So that has to be worth at least something, even though right now he's not looking great, and I 100% understand that and I agree with that. It has to be something that you have to consider. So I put more of the blame on the GM not doing a good job supplying the team with a good roster. But Doug definitely deserves his fair share of the blame. And I think Doug deserves more of the blame than Carson does. So I say for like Carson and Doug, stick with them again for next year. I think that's probably what's going to happen. I could definitely see Doug getting fired this offseason, but I'm obviously not entirely sure. But if I were the GM, if I were, making the calls for the Philadelphia Eagles organization, I would stick with the two for next season.
I have to say, I mean, I think somebody's got to get fired here. I mean, I think somebody will get the axe. I personally, it should be Howie. I mean, I'm always more of a blame the GM kind of guy. I mean, I definitely was with the Phillies across the street, and I am here. I mean, they haven't drafted well in years, and quite honestly, it's funny. I've been reading some stuff that like Jeffrey Lurie's been involved in the drafting process. He was involved with Hurts. Why is the owner involved in the drafting process at all? Like, look, just stay out of it. Leave that to the talent evaluation. Like, I don't understand why he's involved in it. I mean, that to me seems odd. But anyway, I don't think it's going to be Howie, even though it should be. I think it's going to be Doug. I mean, just because it seems like the relationship is strained, kind of like what Matt was saying. I think it's going to be Doug. I'm not 100% ready to give up on Doug. I'm like 95% of the way there. I don't know what other options will be out there after the season that would be intriguing for this team.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear all of you say the same, because I don't know if I'm ready either to give up on Doug, and I think it wouldn't be fair, because I think a lot of teams quit too quickly, and I'm with Charles. Like, I don't want to keep going off of the Super Bowl and letting that be an excuse, but I think it is something you have to consider when it's between firing him or not. But a change needs to be made, and I like how what Charles said. He feels like it won't. Not Charles, sorry. What Chris said, it won't be Howie, just because you're just being realistic. Like, it won't. You could see it being Doug, and I can definitely see that for sure.
And like I said earlier, in terms of the Jalen Hurts situation, these next 4 games, as meaningless as they may be in terms of standings, it means a lot for the guys who are going to be here next year. This is a 4-game audition for Doug Peterson. It's a 4-game audition for Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts will probably be evaluated every week, and if he stinks this week, does that mean they put Carson back in? Probably not. But it will probably be a week-to-week thing. If Hurts stinks this week and next week, maybe they put Carson back in. But at this point, I think Hurts will probably start the rest of the way. And that's an audition. That's an audition. And if the Eagles end up, for some ungodly reason, win all 4 games and get into the playoffs, then you have probably a nightmare situation for the franchise as a whole, because then it's, what do you do with the quarterback situation?
Well, this is why I kind of have a problem with starting Jalen this week. As I said earlier, you're kind of throwing him to the dogs here, playing against one of the best teams in the league. But if he does stink this week, which I do think is a very real possibility, you have to start him the rest of the way to really see what you have. You can't just start him this game and then start Carson Wentz the week after. You can't do that. If you're going to put Jalen in at this point in the season, you have to stick with him, because you have to see what you have if that's what you're doing. So this really is an important 4 games for the entire Eagles organization, just as Matt said. I'm really hoping that, Jalen plays well, but we'll just have to see.
It's funny, if Jalen doesn't play well, let's say he gets to play through the end of the year, his audition's bad. What do the Eagles do with a top 10 pick here? I mean, there's so many needs on this team. I don't know what they use it on, to be quite honest. I mean, they need line help for sure. I mean, I feel bad for Carson Wentz. I really do. I mean, obviously he's hurt himself by, some of the decision making this year. But I mean, my God, the guy's on his back after every play. I keep saying that, and it's sad to watch. But they need line help. They need receivers. I mean, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none, is the saying. And right now they do have none. So I don't really know what you do with that pick. And obviously I think they need secondary help as well. So I don't know where you go from here. That being said, I think Jalen Hurts will look okay this week. I don't think he'll look like anything spectacular. I think he'll look decent, and it'll be enough to keep the game semi-close for a while, just because Drew Brees won't be there. And Taysom Hill is not Drew Brees. So I don't think this week will be a ringing endorsement of Hurts, but I think it'll be kind of an, okay, he did well enough to earn another week kind of thing.
I totally agree, Chris. I think this is going to be a situation where Hurts probably plays similar to Carson in a way. You know, he's going to have the flashes where he looks good like he did last week, but I also think he's going to struggle, especially since it's the Saints and it's a top defense in the league. He's going, like, don't be surprised if he throws a pick or two, you know, and people need to start. He's going to get sacked too. You know, he can move the pocket as much as he wants. He can scramble for his life as much as he wants, but he's going to get sacked. It's going to happen. And, you know, you're going to start to see all the problems that people have been complaining about with Carson Wentz all year. It's still going to be the same problem with Jalen Hurts in there. And as far as the draft pick goes, Chris, like you brought up, I want to talk about this a little bit because, like you said, there are so many holes on this team right now. Offensive line is obviously a huge issue. Carson Wentz was the most sacked quarterback in the league before he was taken out, and probably still is. He probably still leads the league in that department. Poor guy. And then also you can look at pretty much anywhere on the defense that is in D-line. And even D-line, all those guys are getting older. And a lot of them are overpaid. Fletcher Cox probably is not worth the money they're paying him anymore, even though he's still very good. Jason Hargrave, what a disaster free agent signing. And Malik Jackson, another disaster free agent signing. So, you know, you look at those guys, they're probably getting overpaid to what they are valued right now. So you could look anywhere in the defense too. You know, obviously linebacker is a huge hole. I swear to God, if Nathan Gary is still on this roster next year, I'm going to pop a blood vessel. What I would really like the Eagles to do is either look at offensive line, first round pick. You can't go wrong with that. Wide receiver, you could look at Jamar Chase if he's still there and if you have a high enough pick. But what I really want them to do is, this would be my dream scenario, is that they take linebacker Micah Parsons, because it's arguably the biggest need on this team right now is linebacker. And, you know, as much as, you know, you could say the Penn State Eagles connection to Homer connection there for me, but Micah Parsons is the most talented defensive player in this draft, and it's not close. And he would immediately make this team much better. And the whole argument that linebackers at that position in the NFL is phooey, and this team has proved it.
I'm 100% with you, Matt. Everything you said, I was all about. I think if you're going down the list, offensive line is top in the first pick. And I 100% think, whatever else, if it's possible in any way, Micah Parsons is key. He would turn this team around so much, and it's a dream. I want that so bad. And then anything else, like, I'm totally, like Chris said, it's everything. The defensive, everything needs something, but you just go down, like, that's the top. And then wide receivers, the rest, like, you see who has best as you go down. And then there's also hopefully stuff you get in free agency and everything. But when it comes to the draft, hopefully top Micah Parsons would fit this team.
Absolutely agree with that. This team has not had a great linebacker in a very, very long time. That would be such a great get for the Eagles. But I also totally agree with the drafting offensive line in the first round. I'm a big believer that success in the NFL starts in the trenches, both on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. You have to bolster up the line. So if I were the GM of the Eagles and I was, you know, making the calls in April, I would definitely take Micah if he was there. I'm not sure if he will be, but I'm definitely for getting drafting offensive line help. And going back to the Jalen Hurts thing, I just really feel like throwing him in this week is kind of like putting like a Band-Aid on like a severed arm, you know? It's not really going to do much. I think this is going to be really telling of all the different problems that this team really has, that a lot of fans just are kind of turning a blind eye to and just throwing all the blame on Carson. So I lost my train of thought.
No, I want to say I'm with you there. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken arm. I mean, what I always say is it's like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. I mean, the ship's going down, guys. I mean, but anyway, Micah Parsons would be great. Don't get me wrong. I don't think Howie Roseman knows he can draft linebackers. I mean, I couldn't even tell you when the last time was we've taken a linebacker with our first pick. In fact, I was actually looking at a mock draft that had him going to the Cowboys. So as a Penn State fan,
that's where he wants to go. Did you guys see his posts?
I didn't see that. No.
Yeah, he posted. Well, first he said something about I want to stay in blue and white, and then he like shared a picture of him like at the Cotton Bowl, like in the stadium. Like I was like, Micah, just wait till you're wearing green. Like you're gonna love it.
That's for a kid from Harrisburg. That's kind of surprising. I would think, either Pittsburgh or
If he's a
Philly.
Cowboy, I would want it. In the words of Matt, I'd pop a blood vessel.
But they actually did have Jamar Chase, the wide receiver out of LSU, going to the Eagles, which should be a good pick. I mean, personally, though, I agree with Charles. If you're not going to draft a linebacker, then I think it should be somewhere in the trenches. I mean, especially if you're going to roll with Carson Wentz. I mean, if I'm Carson Wentz, I'm telling Howie, look, if you don't draft a lineman here, I'm not coming back and starting. It's honestly, I mean, the guy needs protection desperately. So he should be in Howie's ear saying, like, look, you got to give me some help back here.
Yeah, a star receiver would be great and really helpful, but I think we're all right in the receiver. It's just when you got to fix the receivers mean nothing if you don't have the offensive line. Like he needs to be able to throw the ball. So it doesn't matter who you have catching it because there's no protection.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just a big thing with me really is this offensive line. Like even with like the injuries we have on the offensive line, like Brandon Brooks is getting old. Jason Kelsey's getting old. Lee Johnson's getting old. We have no idea what we have in Andre Dillard because he only played one season and he tore his ACL this season before the season even began. So as much as I would love to have Jamar Chase on the team, I wouldn't necessarily be a fan of a flashy pick like that just because I feel like this team really needs to build from the inside out rather than the outside in. Mm-hmm. So if Howie really wants to make this team better and he wants Carson to succeed, he has to protect him because this offensive line is basically just a turnstile right now. He's getting no protection. So
I would say though that the one guy I would keep around on the offensive line is Jordan Mailata. His spot should not even be up for discussion right now. He should be the left tackle day one next year. You can say Andre Dillard was supposed to be left tackle and he has earned that, whatever. But Mailata's play at left tackle, he consistently has been graded every game he's played. He's been graded in the top 5 in all offensive linemen in the league every week. Based on that game, I think this week he was number 2 in offensive linemen. So I think his spot should be set in stone. I think Jason Kelsey's going after this year. I think he retires. He molded it over the offseason this year, but I think this is finally when he hangs it up. And then I'm glad you brought up Brandon Brooks here, Charles, because as great as he was and has been for his entire Eagles tenure, we don't know what we're going to get from him next year. 2 Achilles tears is nothing to sneeze at. That's pretty significant. So we don't know what we're going to get out of that. I think if the Eagles are going to target offensive linemen, which they should target interior offensive linemen because I think they're probably set at tackles. Maybe move Andre Dillard to right tackle, even Jake Driscoll. Say what you will, he's not great, but he's also not bad either. So I think you would probably need to focus on interior offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely need that. I mean, I'm trying to think. I mean, besides Mailata, I don't know who else you can really lock in there for next year. And the other problem is they don't have the money to go out in free agency. But, what I wanted to talk about real quick and pivoting from Jason Kelsey and, you got to build from the inside out. 2 guys, Fletcher Cox and Jason Kelsey, have kind of been, I don't want to say that they've been, that they're anti the QB switch here, but they did support Wentz after the demotion, which, that's normal. But I wonder how much the locker room is lost right now, because I've always kind of been a little questioned about Carson Wentz's leadership in the locker room. I don't really know who the leader is in the locker room right now. And I think that's a big problem for the rest of this season and moving forward, is that this team doesn't have an identity, period. I mean, Carson Wentz, I don't know that he ever was the identity of this team, but right now they definitely don't have one.
That's a fantastic point, Charles. Like you said, there is no identity. There's no clear leader. And I think, in the past couple of years, we kind of took that for granted with the guy we're playing this Sunday in Malcolm Jenkins. He's the one guy from the 2017 team that we let go. Probably shouldn't have been the first guy out of the other guys we've listed today. But in terms of, Jenkins was the unquestioned leader on that team and in that locker room, and I think he's a big reason the Eagles stayed the course last year when they were struggling and ended up winning the division. So it's tough because Carson Wentz is not the identity of this team, and that's been proven. And in terms of who wanted this demotion and who wanted, everything else, I think it seems like to me the defense really wanted Carson Wentz to stay in there. Fletcher Cox has gone out and said, he liked that tweet where it was either retweet for Jalen Hurts or like for Carson Wentz, and he liked it. And he backed it up and said, Carson's my guy, he's my best friend on the team. And it seems like a lot of the defensive players said the similar things about Carson. And then the offensive side of the ball, you had Greg Ward and Jalen Reagor come out and say, oh, Jalen Hurts is my guy. We have a great connection. And they've never said anything like that about Carson Wentz. And that alone is worrisome, because how do you not have that kind of connection with the guy that you played with for the past 12 weeks, but you have it with the guy who was the backup?
I think that's a great point to bring up. Like, I really think this locker room is divided. Like, it's very divided. It's just like the Nick Foles thing. It all comes full circle here. This team, or some guys on this team, are just not locked in on Carson Wentz. I don't think they ever have been. They never will be. They want him gone. But then you have other guys, a lot of the older guys like Jason Kelce, like Fletcher Cox. They want him around. This team needs to figure out its identity really bad. This is something that needs to happen as a unit. Football is the epitome of a team sport. You cannot have people doing you have to have everyone together. You have to have everyone on the same page. So I don't know what you do with the Carson Wentz situation. Like, that's something that the coach, that's not even on like the team. That's on like the coaching. That's on the culture of the team. I hate bringing up the culture, but it really is a culture thing.
Yeah, I'll love Nick Foles forever. Obviously, thankful for him in the Super Bowl forever. But that has caused so many issues after the fact. And I hate it because I still hear it today. The people who say you should have kept Nick Foles. Like, I'll say it right here. I'll say it every time. I never wanted to keep him. That was never what I wanted. If anything, I'll say I wish there was a way we could have kept them both, which probably wouldn't have been better. But I was always team keeping Carson. And I hate that they brought in Jalen Hurts, because it just kept the issue going, that there's a two quarterback. Chris said it best. I think that's just the theme of this team for the past couple of years, is you have two quarterbacks, you have none. And
Yeah. Go ahead, Matt.
Go ahead, Chris. Oh, okay. So with the Carson Wentz and Nick Foles thing, we can talk about that till we're blue in the face. We already know the situation. We all know how it turned out. And I think most people with three brain cells or more think, we obviously should have kept Carson Wentz. And, just the way the franchise handled that Nick Foles Carson Wentz situation, Nick Foles should have been gone as the second 2017 season ended, because that's when he had the most value. And then they franchise tagged him and kept him. And it was just the start of the incompetence, because then 2019 you let go of him finally. And you didn't trade him. You just let him go, whatever. And then 2019 Wentz has a whole season where he's not questioned, where he's not talked about, the guy behind you. And he has a great season. He had 27 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, was the first guy in NFL history to throw 4,000 yards without a receiver having more than 500 yards receiving. And you don't just go from having that kind of season to the kind of season he's having now without a lot of significant changes. And obviously, I think the start of that was Jalen Hurts coming in, because it was like, you just gave me a $130 million contract, $130 million extension, and you just that's basically a financial commitment to me, that promised me that you're going to build around me. And then you go in the second round and use a huge, valuable draft pick on a backup quarterback. And then immediately the questions start again. And it's the same cycle. And as everybody likes to say, oh, Carson Wentz, he needs to be mentally tough. He needs to block that out. How can you block that out? At the end of the day, these guys are human as much as we are. And I think if any of us were in the same situation as Carson Wentz, we'd have our feelings hurt too.
You're right. How do you block it out when that's what you've dealt with ever since you were almost MVP? Like, you go from he almost was MVP before he got hurt, and then ever since then it's like, oh, is it you or was it the other guy? Like, it was the other guy better than he's dealt with that ever since.
Matt,
and there's a difference between like having I think some people are like, oh, they're mad at Foles and Hurts, because it seems like some people are mad that they almost brought in a good backup QB, but that's not what this is about. If the Eagles went out there and signed a veteran QB that was also competent, because Carson Wentz, let's face it, up until this year had injury issues. So if they went out there and brought in a veteran QB that proved he could play, that'd be fine. But using, like Matt said, using a second round pick is a completely different story. Okay, that is a completely different story. But I guess going back to the locker room divide, Carson has never struck me as being someone that is very vocal. And that's where they missed Malcolm Jenkins, like Matt said. They don't have anybody in that locker room that I think can, behind closed doors, really, fire up the team, And it feels like Carson Wentz after every game, it's like, I need to play better. I need to do this. It doesn't feel like it's a we need to be better. We need to do this. And that's what it needs to be about. It doesn't seem like they have a guy that is willing to bridge the gap between the offensive and defensive side of the ball and get the team to gel.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. I just going back to what Matt just said about a quarterback like Carson Wentz having a great season like he did last year, and just taking a complete nosedive. That just doesn't happen. It happens, but it doesn't happen to a young, talented guy like Carson Wentz. You have to. It just comes back to the whole thing of the Eagles failed Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz did not fail the Eagles. I've been yelling what Matt said until I was blue in the face because for some reason people just don't understand. Just don't understand this. It really is more on the organization for the failings of Carson Wentz, and I fully believe that this team has just not done a good job supplying with weapons, giving him offensive line help. The coaching has not been there. It can go all the way back to the Frank Reich leaving, going for the head coaching job at Indianapolis. It's just the organization really hasn't done what it's supposed to do to help out its supposed franchise quarterback.
And to further that point there, Charles, I think Frank Reich leaving was probably inevitable, especially after winning a Super Bowl and being a main part of that. There was just no way they're going to be able to offer him an offensive coordinator position and him justifiably taking that instead of taking a head coaching position. But since then, Charles, you're right. They have failed him on the offensive coaching. Even Mike Groh, receivers coach last year, terrible. Press Taylor this year, terrible. This year, offensive coordinator, we don't have one because Doug Peterson did not want to hire one. And this goes all the way back to last year, the end of the year press conference. Doug Peterson says, "Oh, we're going to bring back Mike Groh, and we're going to bring back somebody else. I forget who it is. It's in my mind right now." The next day, both those guys are fired. So clearly there is a misconception there between Doug Peterson and the front office. And that alone, that is when all this started. I think that you can pinpoint that exact day as when all this started, is when the front office started failing Carson Wentz, because there was a clear disconnect between the front office and the head coach, and you just can't have that.
Mm-hmm. It's just a recipe for disaster. You have to, like I said earlier, football is the epitome of a team sport, and even with like an NFL organization, you all have to be on the same page. It really is it's an organizational problem with this team, not a quarterback problem.
And to further the conversation here about the clear disconnect between a team and the front office, we can just look across the street, like Chris brought up earlier, the Philadelphia Phillies. And as of right now, it looks like they're in advanced talks to hire a general manager. And it's we've been screaming for them to hire a general manager, but it's not one anybody's gonna like. It's Dave Dombrowski, who has he won a World Series 2 years ago with Boston, but you could argue that he wasn't the main reason for that. He pushed Mookie Betts away from Boston. He had a great year this year in LA. He got a huge extension, won a World Series. He also has had many paths of trading away great players. Randy Johnson, he traded him away from Montreal to Seattle. And you look at this team, and right now the reaction on Twitter is not good, and you can say what you want about Twitter and all this stuff, but if the Phillies don't have a competent leader, it's just going to be the same thing we're talking about right now with the Eagles, where the star player, Carson Wentz, is obviously not being supported by the front office. You could say something about Bryce Harper right now. And it's going to get to a point where, when do we start questioning when Bryce Harper is going to ask for a trade? Because he clearly asked for a no trade clause in his contract. Is one of the main reasons he signed the contract with us. And now he's got a no trade clause. He might lift that so he can get traded out of here. I mean, because this front office right now. This team has no direction.
Yeah, I mean, Bryce Harper has been hoodwinked, bamboozled, run amok, and led astray here. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, they bring him in, and they're like, oh, we're so committed to winning, and John Middleton wants to be the Steinbrenner of the South, and sign all these big free agents. He is one of the. By the way, I was on Forbes checking this out. He is one of the 1,000 richest people in the world. Okay. I don't want to hear it that you're broke right now. You're not broke. During a pandemic, when you know how many people lost their jobs, I don't want to hear it. You're worth over $3 billion, okay? And you sold your company back in, what was it? I think 2007. I don't know how you could have blown all your money that quickly, okay? It is ridiculous. And I want to keep going here because then the report came out, this was probably now 2 weeks ago, I guess, that the Phillies, it was quickly changed, but that they lost $2 billion. First of all, if somebody actually leaked that out of the front office, that's scary because not only did John Middleton lie to the people in his front office, how do you lose the entire net worth of your franchise in one season? That's literally impossible. The team would have to fold for that to happen. It is actually insane to even believe that. Even the losing $150 million, okay, cool. Open your books and show us, man. Like, I want to see that you lost this money because guess what? I don't believe you. I don't.
Why is it the Phillies are the only ones? I remember you saying this, like, why are you acting like you're the only ones that lost all this money? And I mean, everyone was having the same amount of games. Like, the Phillies are like, we lost $2 billion. Like you said, that's the net worth of the team. Like, you idiot. And you're either an idiot or you're lying. So it's one or the other. And this team just, I'm up to my.
It's extremely frustrating too. Like you said, Kelly, like they're the only ones crying poor right now. They're the only ones. Like not even the Tampa Bay Rays and Oakland Athletics are over here crying poor, and they're averaging like $7 in revenue a year. Like not even $7 million, just $7. And for them to be out here saying, "Oh, we can't re-sign J.T. Realmuto, we can't sign players to big contracts, we can't make this team better because we have no money," is hogwash. Especially when you committed to Bryce Harper 2 years ago, and that was one of the main reasons he came here is because he saw a bright future. Your farm system is trash. So if your farm system's trash, what hope does Bryce Harper, anybody on this team or in this fan base have that the Phillies are going to be relevant for the next 5 years? There's no hope, especially if you don't re-sign J.T. Realmuto.
Like I'm really close. I'm really close to done. Like I'm really to the point. It's funny because we're sitting here about the Eagles and how we're worried about them, but really it's the Phillies that I'm like, do you have any hope at all? Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know who's in a worse position. Okay, I mean, look, their farm system, they've got a couple guys that are pretty decent, but Dave Dombrowski, the only thing he does well is he fire sells his farm systems to win a championship and then burn down the team 3 years later. That's what he does. It's the same thing. Look what happened with the Red Sox. They're god awful right now, and they're in a terrible spot. So that's what he's going to do here. But the problem is he has no ammo to sell from. So, I mean, that's why this hire makes no sense from that standpoint. But yeah, I mean, John Middleton, okay, for him to go, I mean, he was on the radio this is years ago. Okay, actually, I guess this was a couple years ago now. He was like, oh, I'm going to bring that bleeping trophy back or die trying. Well, I guess we could put die trying on his tombstone now because he's not going to bring it back. Okay. I mean, he clearly just doesn't care. Okay. If he's willing to sell, Zach Wheeler, which I know he denied it, but I'm going to be honest, there's definitely some truth in there. I don't believe that for 1 second. I know he's listening to offers. And if he's willing to sell a guy like Zach Wheeler, who was arguably the team's best pitcher last year, to save, a couple $1 million a year, then he just isn't committed. Then sell the team, bro. Just do it. Okay. The team for 10 years now been irrelevant. Okay. And they've lost the fan base. I mean, I don't know how many more people want to stick around. They haven't been in the playoffs for 10 years, like I said. And they just laid off 80 people the day before Thanksgiving. Okay. Like they couldn't have done that back in October. I've never seen the public disapprove of a team more than the city of Philadelphia hates the Phillies right now. I mean, I'm going to be honest. If fans are allowed 100% next year, I hope people don't go. I mean, I don't know why you would support this team right now and give them money when they clearly don't care about you as a fan.
I completely agree with everything you just said. And it's like, because right before we started that, we said about the Eagles or the Phillies, and it's like, who's worse off? And I really think the one that's killing me more, that's hard to watch, is the Phillies, because they are these sparks of hope with these good players that they have. And if you let them go, because we're already down here, like we already have a long way to go, and then you're gonna just drop even lower because you're gonna get rid of the little bits of hope that you have with JT Realmuto, with Zach Wheeler. If you get rid of those people, then like you said, with fans, why am I here? What am I going to cheer for? Because you're not going anywhere. And like you said, I really hope people, like, I'm pretty close to, like, I'm like, will I wear Philly stuff again for like a while? Like, I'm so done with them, because I feel like when the owner, you don't care. Like, you don't give it. Why do I care about you when you clearly don't give a damn about me?
And Chris, I'm glad you brought that up about the fans thing. You know, even if fans are allowed in that with any capacity in that stadium, I think it's going to be reflected about how pissed they are right now. And I think, you know, especially if they don't re-sign JT Realmuto, and if they, you know, continue to say cry poor, they're going to be like, all right, you're really poor. All right, we're going to not go to games and see how poor you are then, because you're going to be worse off. And you know, Philadelphia's a town where you're not gonna have with us. Like, it's not gonna happen. Like, we're not dumb sports fans. We're not. And you could say that about a multitude of other places. But Philadelphia, one thing you can say, you know, of all the things you could say about Philadelphia sports fans, one thing you can't say is we're not dumb. We get it. Like, we know when we're being fleeced, and we know when we're being lied to. And that's exactly what's happening here with John Middleton. He's crying poor. He's saying, you know, all this stuff about losing money. And, you know, he's saying, you know, we're going to sell all these players and we can't afford to buy free agents. Well, if you can't afford to sign free agents, then we're not going to be able to afford to buy tickets, even if we can, because we don't want to come. Nobody wants to come see that garbage team. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, and for him, again, like I said earlier, for him to be talking about poor, like, you want to talk about poor, like, go visit some other sections of the city and get back to me, okay? Like, the amount of people that have lost their jobs, you just drive through Center City, the amount of people that have lost their businesses, dude, shut up. Like, I don't want to hear it, okay? Even if you don't have money, nobody wants to hear it right now, okay, because of the way things are. And also, the other thing, you know, the other reason he needs to shut up is because of the Zach Wheeler thing, that he denied it and goes, oh, I wouldn't trade, you know, him for Babe Ruth. Like, dude, what are you talking about? Like,
because now if he does end up trading him, now you look like an idiot, because you're going to say, oh, you're good, a better player than Babe Ruth.
Exactly. Like, dude, stop talking. Go hire a competent GM and leave the trading up to him, and then shut up and spend your money. Okay. That literally all you have to do is stop talking and spend your money. Okay. Because we know you have it. No, go ahead, Matt.
You got it.
No, I mean, this team has no direction right now. I mean, they quite honestly were a bullpen away from being competitive. And now it feels like, between the rumors of Wheeler, Segura, it feels like they are a season away from tearing it all down, after it felt like 2 seasons ago that they were a sleeping giant. I mean, they're a top 5 market team in the country. They have all the money. They have the fan base. People wanted to come here. And 2 seasons later, we're on the brink of burning it all down.
And I can say, you know, I'm not like the biggest baseball fan in the world, but I do know that the city of Philadelphia does love the Phillies. And it's really hard to see this team being run so poorly right now, especially right now during a pandemic. This city, like, sports can really be something that can bring a city back, like, both like economically and like just like around the community. And big cities like Philadelphia, and like in places like North Philadelphia, they're really struggling right now. A lot of businesses are closing down, and like the Phillies are not doing so well. The Flyers had a good season last year. Obviously, they had a playoff berth. They had a strong playoff run. But then you have like teams like probably like the 2 most popular teams in the city, the Phillies and the Eagles. both, not performing up to snuff. These teams really, the Phillies really do need to figure something out. Either fire a GM, sign a free agent, something. If Bryce Harper I believe it was JT Realmuto that Bryce Harper said to sign. I believe that's the right player.
Yeah.
But if Bryce Harper says your top player, your superstar, if he says sign him.
That's
Yeah.
the bottom line, Charles.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
I
Completely
think
agree.
that is a good place to wrap it up because we'll be here next week and beyond and still talking about this. But as always, we like to end with a fun question. And I think I have a good one because Matt and I were talking earlier about how 25 Days of Christmas from Freeform is garbage. So I would like to ask everybody in sort of a rapid fire, what is your favorite Christmas movie?
Okay, I'm
Christmas
gonna go
Vacation.
with. Oh wow, Christmas Vacation. Huh?
No contest.
That's
Not
my
even
favorite
close.
too, Chris.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I actually think Christmas Vacation is overrated, but we'll save that discussion for another day. I'm gonna say How the Grinch Stole Christmas with Jim Carrey. That movie is hilarious. And I like that it's on Netflix now. But I think it's extremely underrated. That movie is so quotable. I quote it all the time. I love it.
Christmas Vacation and The Grinch are like right here for me. So both are good choices. Charles?
I think, just going back to the Grinch thing, I'm a bigger fan of the original animated one from the 70s and 60s, but that's just me. But personally, my favorite Christmas movie is It's a Wonderful Life. I love that movie. It's obviously a classic. And in my house, we watch it every Christmas Eve. So it's very nostalgic for me too. And I love the message that it has. And I love how it doesn't necessarily have to be, it's not like Christmas is like a good, like a theme around it. But it's just like you can pretty much watch it any time of year too. So it's not necessarily just a Christmas movie, but yeah, it's definitely my favorite.
Another time we'll have to do a podcast about why Matt thinks the Christmas Vacation is overrated. But I get it. I think Elf's overrated, so I guess we all have.
Whoa there!
That's a hot take. That is piping hot take,
know.
Kelly.
Piping
Yikes! That is a piping hot take.
Yeah, I think the Christmas Vacation thing was piping off. But
I think it's like Christmas Vacation, Home Alone, Home Alone 2, and Elf are like the top tier. I can't speak for the Grinch or with the one with Jim Carrey because I haven't seen that. But I know.
Dude, you gotta watch it, man.
It's on
I
Netflix.
know.
So good. It's so
I'll
good.
have to watch it. Yeah, it's been a while since I've even seen the regular Grinch, to be quite honest.
Yeah, Go ahead.
I was going to say, the unpopular opinion here is that because a lot of people are like, oh, the old, like the claymation ones are creepy. I kind of like them.
Oh,
they're elite.
All
yeah.
Yeah.
Except for the little drummer boy, but all of them, the rest.
No, I like the one with the heat miser and the
Year Without a Santa
No
Claus.
Miser,
I think
yeah.
that's a really good one for this year
Yes.
with COVID and everything. You gotta go watch
Yeah.
the one when Santa gets sick, right?
I agree with you, Chris. I think the claymation ones are extremely slept on. I think those are the classics. Those are the ones I remember growing
Anybody
up.
who
You know?
doesn't like them, like who even are you?
Exactly. And if some of the characters are a little bit creepy, I'll say that. The snow dude from Santa Claus is Coming to Town was creepy as hell. He scared the hell out of me as I was a kid. And also,
no, but then he ends up
yeah.
good and he has the toy train. Like
yeah. So it all works out in the end.
If Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is God tier.
Yeah, it's God tier.
All right, that's a good place to wrap up. We will see you again soon. This has been Bad Things Happen in Philadelphia, and yes, they definitely do.
Thank you for watching this edition of Penn State Sports Night. If you're a fan of our content, please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more clips. Also, follow us on Twitter at PSSNTV and on Instagram at PSU Sports Night to keep up with all the action. For all my colleagues, we are Penn State Sports Night.